Good morning and welcome to the Planning Hearing Officers hearing for April 25th, 2018. My name is Laura Stotler and I'm serving today as Planning Hearing Officer. We have 4 cases on the agenda and the relevant exhibits are posted on the panels located directly behind me. The agenda, staff reports, and recommendations for each of today's cases can be found on the city's website. A copy of the hearing procedures are available on the counter by the door next to the agendas, and you'll also find copies of the staff reports there as well. Today we have applications for parking use permits, administrative use permits, and a parking reduction permit. Applications for parking reduction permits shall meet the procedures and criteria set forth in section 30.32.070A and table 30.32-B with qualifying project features, and a discussion of the findings for these are included in all the staff reports. And if the evidence presented in the hearing and at today's hearing, in the application and at today's hearing meets the criteria, then the planning hearing officer can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings in fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners and occupants located within 500 feet of the subject property. There's a sign physically posted on the site in question, and there was a notice placed in the local newspaper, and there was also a copy of the notice posted on the city's website. So hearings will proceed as follows. First, I'll read a description of the requested entitlements. The case planner will then make a brief overview of the case, give an analysis, and make a recommendation. The applicant will be asked to come forward, stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. And the 15-minute time limit will include not just the applicant, but if there's anybody else in his or her party, such as an engineer or a property owner, that's 15 minutes total. Others in support of or in opposition to the application and interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak, stating both name and address, and they will have a 3-minute time limit. Lastly, the applicant will be given an opportunity to make closing comments if desired in response to testimonies given by preceding speakers, and the rebuttal will have a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will be closed and the case taken under submission. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all who have responded to the public notice, either by speaking at today's hearing or anyone who has also submitted a written comment. And if you have submitted a written comment, you'll only receive a response as long as you've also provided your name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. However, if a decision is made at this hearing, the decision date will be today's date, and a 15-day appeal period, and these would be calendar days, would start today. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a decision of a planning hearing officer may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal may obtain forms and brochures on the procedures from the Permit Services Center located in room 101 of this building. If you wish to speak, and I know we have some people who came in a little late, so if you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of the speaker's forms that are provided by the front door, and please submit that to our planning assistant. I would also like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of this hearing are being recorded as part of the public record. So I also want to announce that we actually have 3 cases on one address. That would be 2201 Honolulu. That would be an administrative use permit, PAUP 1723291, PAUP 1723293, and parking reduction permit, PPRP 1723295. I'm going to combine those into one hearing, so instead of having 3 hearings, we'll just have one to consider those 3 cases. So I'm just letting the public know who would wish to speak on that item. Okay, so for the first item, it is going to be located at 1306 Sonora Avenue, Village Preschool. It's a parking reduction permit number PPUP 1803343. The applicant is Rodney Kahn of Kahn Consulting, and it is a parking use permit to allow a daycare center to utilize parking spaces on adjacent lots in an existing parking lot located at 1425, 1427, and 1429 West Kenneth Road to provide the code-required drop-off spaces for the daycare. This is located in a C1 neighborhood commercial zone, and the project is exempt from environmental review, Class 1 existing facilities. pursuant to State CEQA Guidelines 15301 because the project is to improve an existing parking lot to accommodate the required parking and drop-off for a daycare center. So with that, I would like to ask Mr. Joe to present the case.
Thank you, Ms. Stotler. I'm going to approach the board for a brief presentation and analysis. Well, once again, this project is located at 1306 Sonora. It's located at the northeast corner of Sonora and Kenneth, as seen here on the location map. It's currently developed with a approximately 1,400, it's a little bit under 1,400 square feet. This is the tenant space that's in question right now, and also on the lot there's a 700 square foot, approximately 700 square foot, but a little bit under at the front, which has an address of 1435 Kenneth Road. Right now, it's currently developed with any parking on site. This site was originally developed in 1935 as a gas station in the front and a garage at the rear. Both buildings have been relatively recently vacated. The previous uses was the previous approved uses was a counter service restaurant, which it's still in building plan check, and also at the back was a retail space, which was technically a yoga retail space. Adjacent to the lot, adjacent to the subject space, are 3 lots. It's approximately 10,000 square feet. It's addressed as 1425 to 1429 West Kenneth Road. It consists of a split-level parking lot, which the upper 5 spaces are accessed from the alley, and below are 17 parking spaces, which is accessed from Kenneth. There's a total of 23 parking spaces. The owner, which is Village Preschool LLC, owns the subject lot as well as the 3 adjacent lots for the parking use permit. The parking lot adjacent to the subject space is freestanding. There's no records indicating the parking lot is encumbered or having required parking for any of the neighboring buildings. Just to quickly go over the parking use permit request and analysis, the applicant desires to do a change of use from a retail space to a daycare center. By code, the tenant space is not required to have any additional parking spaces because there's some relief in the code for under being 2,000 square feet, and it's changing from retail to daycare. However, the code does require one drop-off space on site for every 12 clients. Per their state license, they're going to have a maximum of 45 clients at this daycare. As a result, the map would require 4 drop-off spaces, which they're proposing to be on separate lots, have the 4 parking spaces or the drop-off spaces. As a result, the applicant's requesting a parking use permit. Additionally, the applicant's proposing to reconfigure the parking lot over here. Today, it's configured with 23 parking spaces. After the improvements, it's going to have a total of 17. The reason why it's decreasing, what the applicant's proposing to do is to enhance the parking lot to comply with code requirements of width, length, backups, and landscaping. So the bottom portion of the parking lot that's accessed from Kenneth Road will be improved. The 5 existing alley accessible spaces will remain. And the tenant proposes to have 1 accessible handicap and improve the path of travel between the daycare center and the parking lot for safety and also for pedestrian walkability between the 2 sites.
So that's the ramp?
The ramp is right here.
Okay.
And then over here would be the path of travel they're showing in these dotted lines. The parking spaces will be approximately 80 feet from the front entrance from Sonora for the daycare, and approximately 20 feet from the rear entrance from the back. A condition is recommended to the hearing officer that the required covenant with the Los Angeles County is required to ensure the drop-off spaces are continuously provided on the adjacent site for the duration of the proposed daycare. Because the drop-off spaces will serve the subject site and no other property, excess traffic is not anticipated to be a concern. The driveway will be reconfigured and will be reviewed by the Public Works Department and will comply with their current standards. Last, there's no active code compliance on either sites in regards, and neither department or any departments notified had any addressed any concerns. Just to summarize, staff recommends approval with the suggested conditions, and this concludes my presentation.
I just have a question. I just want to verify, and
Sure.
I'll ask the applicant as well. These are the spaces here that are going to be the drop-off spaces?
Correct. There's going to be 4 as required by code, and this is going to be respective to their maximum amount of clients, so that it would require 4 drop-off spaces, and they're all marked right here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and these all will remain and be servicing the site.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay, I'd like to call forward Rodney Kahn, applicant for the project.
Good morning, Ms. Stotler and city staff. My name is Rodney Kahn. My offices are located at 1111 North Brand Boulevard, Suite 403, here in the city of Glendale. To add to Mr. Joe's presentation, we are requesting the 4 pickup and drop-off spaces for this child care center, as pointed out, to be located directly adjacent to the building. Also pointed out, the owner of the business is also the owner of the property where the buildings are located, and they're also the same owners of the property for the adjacent lot where the parking is located. The purpose of these improvements to provide additional landscaping and beautify the site, but also to provide the handicap accessible parking and path of travel, is to serve the child care center. The use of the facility to be used as a child care center, is allowed by right. It is a permitted use in this C1 zone. The building's 1,375 square feet, as was pointed out, a little under 1,400 square feet. The child care center has actually already been approved by the State of California Department of Social Services, the community care licensing, and it's licensed for up to 45 children between the ages of 2 and 6 years old. And I'll give you a copy of the license. It was issued in March of this year, so last month.
Thank you.
The children coming to this facility will primarily be from the neighborhood that it's surrounding. There will also be accommodations for some children, for families who cannot afford child care, through the Child Care Resource Center. Drop-off for the children typically occurs between 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And pickup for many of the children actually occurs between 2:30 and 3 p.m. And there's a small percentage of the children that actually stay up until 6 p.m. So where the zoning code states that the 4 spaces, for us 4 spaces, the spaces need to be designated for 10-minute parking only between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 4 to 7 p.m. We would actually prefer that the pickup in the afternoon start earlier, that it starts somewhere around 2 p.m. and it could extend, if the code requires, up to 7 p.m. because, like I mentioned, to accommodate our needs, it would be a little bit earlier in the afternoon where a large percentage of the children actually get picked up. There's been a considerable amount of outreach that's been done, and this is a compliment to the owners of the business and owners of the property, Lena and Lewis. They've done outreach to the businesses that are in Kenneth Village, and I'll give you a petition that's been signed by a number of the businesses in the area. They've also done some outreach to neighboring properties along with parents from their facilities. So I'd like to hand that in as part of the record as well. There are 9 findings, actually, and Mr. Joe touched on all of them, or some of them, or most of them. And what I'd like to do is just kind of supplement a couple, just to kind of emphasize the point, and then I'll conclude my remarks. As you look through the required findings, the first being is this parking within 1,000 feet radius measured from the primary entrance. Well, as you can see from our site, we're directly adjacent to the property. So we're between about 20 to 80 feet from the entry points to our facility. We've also designed, as I mentioned earlier, about path of travel, and path of travel from our new handicap parking space, but also from the lot itself. The accessibility is there as shown on the arrows on the plan. These plans have been reviewed and approved by the building department as it relates to meeting the requirements that they require for path of travel issues. The second, the applicant shall provide evidence of a valid lease or covenant, as was stated, because it is the same ownership entity that owns the businesses and the building and the parking. Actually, a covenant will be recorded. That off-site parking would be available. Obviously, this parking lot is freestanding. As was pointed out, there are no records indicating any encumbrances on the parking lot. In the title report, there is no documentation, there's no leases, there's no shared parking agreements. As I continue to go on, it's to talk about what is maintained for these off-site parking spaces. There is an alley, a 15-foot alley that's directly north of the site, and it separates the commercial area from, there are single-family homes to the north. This condition has existed for many years. It will continue to exist, and we don't envision any negative impacts as a result of our request. It goes on to talk about valet parking. Valet parking is not proposed, and then last about the shared parking, which there will be no shared parking. We've had an opportunity to review the 10 conditions of approval that are being suggested and recommended, and we agree to comply with all of them. I'll conclude my remarks. If you have questions, I'll be happy to provide answers.
And I just want to clarify that we have a condition 7, that a covenant satisfactory to the city attorney shall be recorded with Los Angeles County Recorder's Office. I would just add that, just to clarify, that covenant would be to retain the parking as long as you have this daycare use. The parking would be for the daycare.
That's correct.
That's okay. Just want to make sure that we have agreement on that.
Sure.
All right. Would you be using the daycare for anything after childcare, for tutoring or something? Would the facility be used for another use?
No, that's not what we envisioned. In fact, we've spoken extensively about the building and the use and whatnot. No, it would just be for the child care center, and it would comply with what the conditions that the state requirements are.
Okay. Then I'm looking here just to see if there was a condition that really talks about the hours that you have to have a drop-off area. I don't see one in here. I know that's in our code.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be opposed if I added a condition that would say you at least have to provide for the minimum drop-off time frames in our code? If you want to have additional, that's fine with me. I just want to make sure that we at least meet our code minimum.
That's absolutely fine with us. In
Okay.
fact, like I mentioned in my presentation, we would want to probably extend that out because it's to our benefit, because the children are primarily being picked up between 2:30 and 3. So we would go, if the code requires between 4 to 7, we would go from 2 to 7. That'd be absolutely fine with us.
Okay. All right. I have no further questions. Thank you. With that, have our next speaker, Leah Balcha, followed by Karen Von Gunten.
Good morning. My name is Leah Balicha, and my family has owned a home at 1318 Blossom Street in Glendale, California, 91201 since 1990. I wanted to come today to share my experience as a Grandview parent. Grandview House is the preschool that Lana and Louis Hayek currently own and run. Both of my kids have attended Grandview House Preschool since 2014, and both Lena and Louis run their current preschool with love. Immediately walking onto that property, anyone who visits it will see flowers and gardens and children playing on tricycles, and the first thing that you will see is that every child is genuinely having an amazing time. And throughout our stay with Grandview House, all of the staff and Lena and Louis have been able to attend to any concern that we have had or any question that we have had in a very responsible and caring way. We actually have stayed at Grandview House, even though the drive is a little bit far for us, because it's just run like a family atmosphere. And they are both extremely responsible and caring business owners. And I just wanted to share that the kids are really treated as if they were their own kids. And I am very excited to see them opening up a new preschool because, I was just hearing that the state of California pre-K education was rated something on a scale of 2 out of 10 on a national scale. So preschools like this are an imperative for our kids and the education system as it stands. And I really wish Lena and Louis the best, because I know that they're going to turn this space into an amazing preschool. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Von Gunten, followed by Pilar Molina.
My name is Karen Von Gunten, and I'm here today for you to understand my perspective as a customer and hope your decision at the end of this hearing will be fair. For 17 years, I've been a customer of Chrissy's, the hair color experts at 1415 West Kenneth Road. For over a decade, I've driven from Tahunga to Kenneth Village every 3 weeks to get my hair done. I have seen many changes over the last several years, but the event that most severely impacted my ability to park at all nearby was the opening of the coffee commissary. I'm sure they're nice people, but since it opened its doors, I'm lucky to find a spot. It seemed irresponsible to have the size of the coffee commissary to come into the village, seeing how much parking is required. My once half-hour drive is now 40 minutes, as I can't be sure I'll find a parking space in the lower lot. I was told the other 2 lots were private, so it has forced me to park in the residential neighborhood and hike into Chrissy's shop. The residential neighborhood is all either uphill or downhill. So after Chrissy has made all these ladies' hairs beautiful, no one wants to hike 3-4 blocks back to their car that is parked in front of someone's house. I no longer refer business to Chrissy, as many of my friends are retired and won't chance taking a hike into her shop. So removing any parking spots in this highly coveted area will be a death blow to some of the shops in Kenneth Village. We know you, the building department, is taking into consideration the density, local demographics, availability of public transit, and walking into account when you make your decision. But please understand that smart growth serves communities, enhances businesses, and doesn't put them in peril. But is it fair for one business needs to so unfairly disadvantage so many others who depend on and built their businesses on their traditional amount of parking availability? In allowing any new business, there must be a balance between that company's rights and the damage that it does to the existing environment, or in this case, business environment, and the number of stores, businesses, and jobs one new company might affect. Finally, please have the daycare alter their plan of removing parking spaces and have their drop-off and pick-up across the street. Thank you.
Which parking do you use right now? Are you using the same lot? Is that, or is it a different lot that you use
Well,
in Canada?
thanks to the coffee commissary, it's catch as catch can. If I find a spot, that doesn't show the other parking areas. There's behind it, which is rare, down the street. I typically circle for 5 minutes, and then I end up in a neighborhood, which annoys all the neighbors. And then I'm hiking, whether it's a cold day, hot day. And as I said, the coffee commissary really put a crunch on all spots by removing even more spaces. It's really getting treacherous, and I'm not sure, how Chrissy's business is going to exist, or for that matter, all the local businesses. Because if you can't park, you can't shop.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Pilar Molina, followed by John Von Gunston.
I am the Regional Director of Operations for Quest Realty Group, KVL Partners, and also representing Bill Polaris. The addresses that we own are from 1405 through 1413 West Kenneth Road and 1400 through 1426 West Kenneth Road. We came into the village about 9 years ago. The village was very quiet, a hidden gem, and we just fell in love with it. Little by little, we brought new businesses, and now Kenneth Road is booming with people on Saturdays and Fridays buying coffee, shopping across the street, which is what we'd like to see. However, there's always the good, the bad, and the ugly. The bad situation is that now we have so much traffic that there is not enough parking lot. Not only we own the commercial for Quest and KVL, down below we also have 7 apartment buildings on the 2nd floor. Now, we have welcomed every new business, hoping that they thrive, that they bring some added value to the village, and that they can succeed, is what we really want. But we find ourselves now with so many complaints that there's nowhere to park. My main concern in a position for Bill Polaris across the street and KVL Partners and Quest is that when this property was acquired, I believe there was some kind of misled conception that there is a covenant that we have a copy, and I would like to present to you as evidence, on which it states that we share all of these parcels around Kenneth Road. Not Bill Polaris, but KVL Quest, the corner business, which is now Sonora with the new owner, and Thomas Swick, who is also here present as one of the owners. We pay the property taxes, majority of it. Also, we are in charge of all the common area expenses. And over the years, our position has been all the landlords to work together to ensure that we can cross-market, we can cross-business our tenants. Because some tenants will come, let's say, to Chrissy, but they'll go across the street and buy bakery. So where do they park? Do they park on our lot, or do they park across the street? So the covenant had helped us to ensure that we all share the space, and then all our clients have the ability to come and enjoy the village. The problem that we have is that the new owner and the seller have somehow casually ignored the covenant, and we feel that that's not the right way to do it. The covenant clearly states, and it's also written with the verbiage what includes 1435 and some of the parcels that the new owner has acquired. And we feel bad that maybe it was misrepresented, but somehow we want and wish to be able to have the ability to utilize these parking spaces. Now they're already there. We know that the commissary, when they came in, they brought a lot of business. We're happy for them. We still don't understand how the city would make this unilateral decision on one single dwelling. That's the position they took in our last meeting, saying that they have no parking lot or they have no parking spaces. But then how does the rest of the village get impacted? So we've been trying to be lenient and help out, but now with the new business, I don't even know how we're going to be able to come and operate our business or do inspections. So we really would like to have the ability to work with them. They're there. We don't completely oppose to the 4 spaces, we really didn't know, we had no knowledge of what spaces they were talking about until we saw it now in the plans. We may have a different position in the next couple of weeks after I sit down with the owners. But what we like to do is if they're going to have a new covenant, this covenant has to include our covenant on which is going to allow a free parking space and the ability for all of our tenants to share this parking space. And this is written in our covenant because their position is that their parking belongs to them, and we disagree.
Okay, is it a covenant that's
is.
recorded on the property?
It
The
is.
parking lot property?
And I haven't, and I would like to present it to you. I believe that it was written, this property was built in 1925, and I do understand that it's a little ambiguous and a little vague, but it has worked over the years, over the over 70 years, whatever years you want to say, that all of our tenants have the ability to park and use the spaces, because then again, they may go to the bakery, but they may come to the CrossFit, which is our tenant, or they may go to the commissary to have lunch. So how do you decide what do they deserve or where they're entitled to park? Well, you really can't tell, because they may visit the yoga, they may visit the ice cream shop. We don't know that, and we don't want to play or start having this game where we're going to play parking police. We want them to be open for us to have that parking as well as part of the new covenant, if that's what their intent is going to be.
Okay.
And then again, we're happy to welcome them in the village. We want them to thrive. But the only last remark I have is that I don't understand how the city is reviewing these businesses and allowing permits without taking into consideration the impact for the rest of the businesses.
Okay.
And if I can present that to you.
Sure. Thank you. And okay. Next, John Von Gunton, followed by Chrissy Stone.
Thank you. First of all, Ms. Stotler, thank you for accepting public comments in this matter. My name is John Von Gunton. I am here by virtue of accompanying my wife, Karen, who is a frequent customer of Chrissy's hair color, and I accompany her every so often, and clearly I'm overdue for a visit. The reason we are here is to oppose the current configuration. I wondered if I might ask Mr. Khan for clarification. Would that be possible?
Why don't you just address your questions to me?
Sure.
And then we can ask him to address that during rebuttal.
Well, okay, but it's quite central. I did not get a clear path from parent in car to door of school. What terrain do they cross? Do they cross an alley? Do they cross a ramp, staircases? Is it just straight across the backyard, so to speak, of the daycare center? And that's what I don't know. And my next point hinges on that path for those children, those 45 children every morning and every night. So would it be possible for me to understand that before I either A, make a fool of myself by saying something not true, or fail to make a point that might be relevant?
Well, why don't you just make your point right now of what your concerns are, and then we'll have him address it.
Sure, and I hope I'm not completely wrong, but apparently, at least from what I could see from where I was sitting, these spaces are not a true drop-off point by definition. A drop-off point is a place where I pull up in my car, got my grandkid or whomever there, door opens, walks onto a curb, onto the school property, into the hands of somebody who walks constantly on school property into the door. This appears more to be a temporary, very short-term parking permit, because it looks as if the parents are going to have to park and then leave their car and
Could you please speak into the mic, because we're about
Sorry.
ready to get a call.
and handhold the child across, I think they said 20 to 80 feet, I wasn't sure of that, to the school's doors, which that's really temporary parking, because in a drop-off, the driver remains in the car and the person is dropped off. This is truly a request for a temporary parking area under the guise of a drop-off. It is not drop-off, and it's a bit of a disguise to call it a drop-off, at least unless I misunderstood the geography of the thing. But my primary concern is, even though the Hayeks seem to really run a dynamite daycare center, I'm concerned that it is yet still a business. It's not a 501c3, and it competes for resources with all other businesses. I'm concerned that the diminution of the parking availability will endanger all these other businesses up and down here, already impacted. And when that happens, some of them will go out of business. What happens when their landlords or or the owners of this area decide to raise rents? They've lost customers, and now the rents are raised. I do not want to see any additional empty shop fronts on Kenneth, and that's what we fear. I think there's a social responsibility to be looked at in addition to the drop-off versus temporary parking. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Chrissy Stone, followed by Thomas Swick.
Good morning. I'm Chrissy Stone. I own the Hair Color Experts at 1415 and a half West Kenneth. I've been in the Kenneth area for 30 years. I've owned Chrissy's for 17 of that. One of the things I just wanted to say before my time even started is, in your opening remarks, you had said that the gas station was being formerly used or previously used as a sandwich store, and that's incorrect. It has never been a restaurant. It was a florist shop, and it sat empty when a car ran through it.
Just to clarify, it has a tenant improvement for a counter service restaurant, and it has a registered BRC. Now, they're still currently working on it. It doesn't be registered and approved permits currently. You are correct. You are correct, but they do have permits and a registered business registration certificate for the counter service. And I know there was, at one point, they started working on it, and they do have permits for it, but.
Right.
Correct.
Just when you said previous use, like I said, I just wanted that corrected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis, would you set the timer, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm a mother. I have 2 kids. I'm very kid-friendly. And I'm also really business-friendly because I'm a single mother. And recently, because of all of the changes in parking, already impacted, because we've already lost some spaces in that lot, I had a hairdresser quit, and she moved her clientele, which was older, because there wasn't any more accessibility for their clients. I've had 2 hairdressers, which I'm trying to get into my 2 empty spaces, send clients up during the week and could not find parking at all. And they've decided not to move to the village, which is a huge amount of money for me. And I'm really fearful what the future holds. When I moved up there, Bill Polaris is my landlord. He owns the complete south side of the village, and Polaris representing him here today. But it was always under the quiet understanding that since 1927, that all village customers, not employees, but customers, park in all village lots, and we all support each other. The idea has always been that when you come to the village, we want you to stay in the village as long as possible and, eat everywhere and do everything. I'm not against a preschool coming into that area at all. In fact, I haven't talked to anybody in the village that has been anti-preschool. That wasn't why we were here. We were here strictly for the parking. I was promised upon moving in parking for my customers, and I've built 17 years of business around those parkings that I'm now losing, and it's detrimental. When I have clients telling me that if I don't do something about this parking, that it's going to be, they're not going to come to me anymore. I've had clients receive parking tickets because we're in the process of trying to get Kenneth increased in parking time because we're having numerous complaints from the residents about the amount of parking that's a problem. So we're working on that, but I paid 8 parking tickets last week. My only suggestion would be is I feel really bad that none of us were considered when this project even started. It's all been hearsay, and I know my yellow light just went on, but I wish we would have known or at least had a dialogue so they could see how this was going to impact us, because it's not that we're against them. We're just trying to keep our businesses afloat while welcoming them to the village. I think adding the restaurant on the corner, which has not been transparent until today, I really feel that that would be a better solution, is to use that property as their drop-off and loading, because I have kids. I know how long it takes to get a kid out of the car. and if you're doing 45, especially in the afternoon when we're at our busiest on Kenneth, the traffic already backs up to the point of accidents. We need a traffic study because it's really a problem up there. It's a safety issue, not for the children, for the people driving. I would just hope that this could go on to further review. I would hope that we could be involved with the dialogue between the village and the property owners. I actually feel that the property owners were put in a bad position from the seller, and it's not fair to them or to us. And I'm just trying to save my business.
What are the hours of your business?
We're Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to at least 8 p.m.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas Swick, followed by Christina Kazazian.
Hello, my name is Tom Swick. I'm the owner of the largest building in the village. Accounts for, my understanding, is approximately 1/3 of the square footage of the village. I'm on the far corner, the opposite corner from the proposed child care center. When I bought the building, I too invested a great deal of money in the building. I was told right away about the covenants, about the parking, about all that. It became a big issue. And we said, okay, fine, it works well. Everybody's been working well through all the years. And while it gets busy sometimes, it's a wonderful village. The people walking their dogs, their kids, and strollers, and coming to eat and getting their hair done and all that kind of stuff it's an amazing place. Through the last 8-10 years, however long we've been there, we have been seeing it. All the businesses are getting higher quality, higher level, which brings more people, and that's always been a little bit of an issue. Parking has always been a little bit of a problem, but not significant until the commissary came in. The gentleman that owns it is here. He's a great guy, Tyler. But I personally don't understand how you would even allow the commissary in the first place, because he has no parking. 0 parking is my understanding with his property. But he's there, and he's successful, and we want him to be successful. But it has created a lot of problems for the village. Ever since he arrived, we rarely used to ever have the parking lot full. Now it's rarely not full. And it's difficult for everybody, for all the tenants. I'm hearing from all the other tenants I'm on the tenant association, and they are all having difficulty with this, with the commissary. And I know we're not here about the commissary, but the problem is that business came in right before the child's preschool. So we are pretty much at capacity when it comes to parking. Everybody parks on the streets, as you've heard, and the neighbors don't like it. It's just become much more difficult. And again, the commissary is doing great. We're happy for him, but we do have to acknowledge that sometimes things don't work out. The preschool gentleman, I met him the other day, very nice gentleman, and I'm sure he runs a great preschool. I was concerned about the safety. I was a youth pastor. Technically, I guess I'm still a pastor, but I've always had a soft spot in my heart for kids, and the thought of a kid getting hurt is very upsetting to me. I don't personally see how that would be safe in any way, safe in any way, form. We have a lot of bad drivers in that area. We have a lot of people that rush through the alleyway, drive at high speeds, and nearly hit people. So it's not the safest place in the world to begin with already. I personally think it's a terrible place for childcare simply because of the safety factor. But when I found out that he does own that spot, before I found out about the restaurant, he has space on the other side of his spot to have the kids dropped off, and I feel that would be much safer. And then the thought of having a restaurant come in afterwards, bringing even more traffic, just seems like we're going down a wrong path here. He did mention to me when he came to see me the other day that he had spent $1.8 million to buy a property. I too bought a property for multiple millions of dollars in Burbank that he contacted me about maybe having a child care center there. I decided, even though the city had promised certain things, that it wasn't going to happen, so I sold the building. Sometimes things just don't work out the way it's planned. And it has nothing to do with him personally, has nothing to do with the quality of his child care. It has to do with the safety of the kids. It has to do with the neighborhoods and all the businesses that are there having the perceived ability to run their businesses, run their lives, and not see kids hurt. And he seems like he's very conscious about safety, so I'm convinced he'll do something to make sure the kids are safe. So I'm not as concerned about that. But I do feel that if they lose even one parking spot in this village, it's going to make a bad situation even worse. And so as one of the principal owners of this block, I just think that we have to find a way to not take away one single spot from the existing businesses. And with the amount of land he has, there should be a way to compensate and allow him to run his wonderful child care center in a safe way.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Christina Kazazian, followed by Lena, I hope it's Heiler. Hi, okay.
Good morning. My name is Christina Kazazi, and I'm a longtime resident of Glendale. I lived here my entire life. My child currently attends Grandview House, and it is absolutely the most wonderful facility we've ever been to. But I'm not going to dwell on how wonderful Grandview is because I would be here all day. What I am going to talk about is the parking in Kenneth Village. Every morning I drop off my child excuse me, at Balboa Elementary. We drive through Kenneth Village every single morning to the other facility off of Pacific, and at 7:55 a.m. when I'm going through there is plenty of parking all over the place. The streets are empty, the other lot is empty, and there is hardly anybody on that street. The only things open are apparently Chrissy's, which opens at 8, and the coffee commissary and the bakery across the way. Nothing else is open. It's dead in the morning. When I come back through there at about 8:15, 8:20, still tons of parking, empty. None of those businesses along Kenneth on the same side of the street or even on the other side seem to even be open at that hour. So I'm not sure how the drop-off in the morning, which is between 8 o'clock and 8:30, pretty much when school starts, is going to be an issue. There's no, I'm not joking, every morning I drive through. And most of the mornings I actually stop on my way back through town, stop at the coffee commissary, stop across the street at the little bakery, grab my little pastries, and keep on going. So anyone who says there's parking issues at 8:30 in the morning, I'm not sure where they are driving through, but I've never experienced them, and I do this 5 days a week, every day. On Saturday, completely different story, but we're not open on Saturdays. During the afternoons, once again, I pick up my one child at 2:30 from one school, drive across Kenneth Village to pick up my other one at 3. And every day, yes, there is more cars in the afternoon, absolutely. Every business is open. The village looks like it's thriving, but multiple times you can find parking on the street, in the other parking lot. I'm not saying removing this parking is going to be an issue. Not an issue, it probably will be. But another perspective is how much business is going to bring. When I drop off my kid to school or pick them up, we go to the Taekwondo Dojo. I use the mail services. I use the other hair spot. Sorry, Christy, I haven't been to yours yet. I use the other place. My husband uses the CrossFit right there. I'm signing up for the yoga because they just opened it. Apparently they're going to open up another dance studio for children, which my daughter will go to. She was going to the one that was at the yoga spot. We use virtually every business in that neighborhood, including the commissary, the bakery, and the little restaurants on the corner. So this is one parent, and I use almost every single place. Imagine 45 parents with the yoga. My husband picks up the kids sometimes in the afternoon, and he goes to CrossFit first and then goes to get yogurt with the kids after he picks them up. And then he takes my kids to Taekwondo. He was taking them to ballet. Now that's going to be some down the street. Even in the afternoon, one stop, we pick up our kids and here we go. So 45 families, yes, it might be a lot of parking, which from this, you see they own it, but that's 45 families using the village every day, morning and night. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Alina, followed by Louise Peoples.
Thank you. My name is Lana Hayek. I'm the owner of the property in question, as well as the operator of the preschool coming to the old yoga studio building. My husband and I have lived in the neighborhood for over 12 years. I started a family child care from our home in 2012, a few blocks from Kenneth Village. So yes, we live a few blocks from there and frequent the village. When our firstborn was 18 months old. In 2014, we expanded to a commercial center located on Pacific Avenue. Although at a very busy intersection and neighborhood, we have worked to live peacefully with our neighbors, especially in regards to parking. Along with a great team of teachers and supporting staff members who absolutely love what they do and have provided outstanding service to our children and families, we created an excellent reputation for ourselves and therefore the need for space at our school grew rapidly. Last year, we leased to purchase our Kenneth property to further expand our business. From the moment we signed our lease, we allowed the use of our parking lot by Kenneth Village merchants and their visitors. In January, we closed escrow on our property and continued our goodwill with our neighbors by allowing the use of our parking lot. Our staff and families with children on our wait list are very excited and eager to move in to our new location, and we're excited to beautify our property, which will benefit all merchants, visitors, neighboring property owners. I would also like to add that our children's safety is paramount, and I do not take this responsibility lightly. I'm not sure what our neighbors are envisioning. However, we will not have children running around in the streets, sidewalks, or parking lot. Children are escorted by parents into the school. They buzz in and enter through a secured iron gate, where they remain until they are signed out of our center and escorted back with a parent. I want you, along with everyone attending today, to understand that we have worked very hard for our property, which includes the 2 buildings and parking lots with no existing covenant, and we have done our due diligence to prove that, which we also confirmed does not exist. We carry the liability, have been paying the insurance, taxes, and mortgage without generating an income at that location for nearly a year. We have expedited requests from the city and have received our state license to operate. We really feel that we deserve the right to move forward in a timely manner. We come respectfully and look forward to a harmonious relationship with our neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Louise Peoples, followed by Tyler King.
Hi. Hello, everybody. I'm Louise Peebles. I'm a longtime resident. My husband bought our house up above Kenneth Village in the late 60s. We've lived there since 81. I've seen many changes, obviously. I'd like to comment on some of the things I've heard. The lady who was up a few minutes ago talking about the numbers of people at different times of day. Yes, morning, you can go through there. It's not too bad. And I do agree. If you add 45 families, as they're talking about, or 45 groupings of children coming in and out of that parking spot, which, by the way, I really do think the city has to do a better job of getting more information that is accurate out well in advance. Anyone who wants to rebut a project is way behind the curve by time they come here. And that is because the person who's been working on it for months, years, has all the cards in place, has worked with the city. The other people come at the, quote, 11th hour and seem to be hecklers or problem people. That's not the case. I was there yesterday in that exact parking lot. I looked at the 4 spots. They sit very close. You drive in the driveway, you take a little left, I guess you could say, and go into one of the 4 slots. Very close to the sidewalk, and very close, therefore, to the driveway, which goes right into the street. The property, as you know, sits on the corner, and the other 2 catty corner and to the directly across on the one side are R1 districts, all right? And on the other side is what we come to understand is a church of a type. Many activities take place there. The parking all the way down Sonora is consumed when they have a gathering. I am talking about many people. The parking goes up Sonora, down Sonora, and when you go across Kenneth, and you're talking about this intersection, because there's parking on both sides of the street, and excuse me, if you go and you use all of those facilities, you and your husband, you're there parked, then quite a little bit of time in those pots. It's not as though you're going in and out and somebody else can dash in and get something and repark. If you're going to stay there a while, you're going to consume a parking place on the street for a long time. And when those street parkings are filled, you are reduced with the size of SUVs and vehicles, many of them by the parents who will be doing the drop-offs, of large vehicles. You almost end up with a one-way street. Not one way, but one lane availability. If you sit on that property and you watch people parking, parallel parking on Kenneth Road, which I've done a million times, it is nigh on impossible to make a parallel parking, and I park parallel very well. I really do. I always have. But it is very tough, and you have people backed up both directions because they can't get around cars. I perceive that where those 4 parking slots are, by time a parent pulls in there and starts to unload a child, maybe out of a car seat or whatever, depending on the age and size and weight, and they take them in through the locked iron gate and come back out, at the times that many of the parents will come somewhat the same time. Let's face it, if they're working parents, sure, they're going to pick up. I don't know how many people pick up their children at 2:30 if they're working parents. If this is a true daycare center, those children are going to be there quite a few hours, generally speaking. If there's 45 of them, how many cars is that? You have 2 children per car? 1 child per car? You have a lot of cars going in and out of there. And in no time at all, at some of the busiest hours, which are late in the day when the hairdressers are there, everybody's doing business, you have parents pulling in there, and when they go to back out the driveway, what's behind them? A whole row of cars. Parked cars. I see my yellow light. There's parked cars there on the backside. They are not going to make an easy back up, swing, a 3-cornered turn, as we call it, very easily. That intersection is going to be so congested. I watched the traffic yesterday. We don't have any speed control particularly there. Oh, we have ticketing if you park too long. But speed control, I see young people fly through there, plus bicyclists. We now have made Grandview, Sonora, that whole area, wonderful for bicyclers. Have you ever seen how many bicycles go up and down and around in there now? The traffic, I cannot see how that's safe. This, I know, says CEQA, you've met your requirements for the 4 parking places. I do want to throw in, and I know this is not part of this hearing, CEQA on that particular property. Was CEQA done about the old gas tanks underneath that property? I think from things we have heard from others, those tanks at some time in the past were filled with cement. I don't know that anybody has tested the soil there. And now you're talking about a little restaurant, which again, after the fact, nobody knows about in advance to try to give input. They're here now trying to catch up. Thank you.
Ms. Stotler,
Yeah.
just to comment on her about the storage tanks. On record, there is something from the Fire Prevention Bureau about the the underground storage tank that it has been remediated and completed, and they deemed it as being safe. So it's in the record file. But just to answer her question in regards to the storage tank, that's a really good point, but we do have it on record from our fire department. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, because Mr. King, and if there's anybody else who wishes to speak, I know some people did come in late. If you would like to speak, please submit one of these screen speaker forms to our planning assistant now. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tyler King, and I am the owner of Coffee Commissary. And I've had the pleasure to get to know Louis specifically over the past, couple months, few months, years even. And I wanted to express my support for the project. I think that as actually a resident of the neighborhood, I live up on Mountain Street. A dead corner on that street is something that we need to change, and they're moving forward in a positive manner on it. So they have my support. That's number one reason why I came here. I think that they will be people that are proactive in the community development of Kenneth Village. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we are convening and strengthening the Kenneth Village Merchant Association, where we plan on using city-provided funds and participation by business owners to continue to grow the village in a positive manner. And part of that really, I think, is addressing the parking issues. Quite frankly, I don't experience these draconian parking scenarios that people are throwing their arms up in the air about. I've never had a hard time parking there, even before I opened the Coffee Commissary as a
patron of Yoga Urt or Arts Deli or Mi Corazon, there's always a place to park. And I think we need to manage that for sure in a positive, cooperative manner. And Louis has expressed that. And I think that's key in, ameliorating some concerns on that front. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that that was their intention, and also some of the other people here as well. Keep growing Kenneth Village strong. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. And then, last chance, is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this item? I'm hearing that there's one more person who wishes to speak. You may come up now and please speak, and then please fill out one of these forms before you leave. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Alicia Frazian. I'm actually a parent at Grandview House Preschool on Pacific. My child started going to the school about 4 years ago. Now my youngest son is going to the school as well. I think that right now is an amazing opportunity for the school to be open, primarily because the school currently is at capacity and she has a waiting list of over 100 students. So being a brand new school 4 years in, or 5 years in, excuse me, she's done an amazing job as a director, as Lana Hayek. With the support of the community, I think that this will be an amazing program to have in the community. We have local families always wanting to be a student at the school, and I think that this will be a great asset for the community and for the village. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No, you've already spoken. I would then take the... Have you filled out a form?
I will.
Yeah, okay.
Good morning. My name is Akram Awad, longtime property owner and resident of Glendale, probably since the late 70s, went to the local schools here, have frequented the village for decades, probably gone there many hundreds of times myself. I have 2 young children who I used to take to the village all the time for the dance studio. My wife goes to yoga there, gone to the coffee commissary many times, to the bakery there many times. And I'm happy to see the village growing, expanding, improving. I think it's great for small businesses. I think it's great for the local community to be able to have a little town square type environment like they have in very few places in America now, like in Sierra Madre and other places. So I think that's wonderful. I know as a parent of young children that I have picked up and dropped off my kids thousands of times now at their preschool, which is in Pasadena. Parents do not pick up and drop off at the same time. There's always a steady stream throughout the morning for about an hour, and in the afternoon for about an hour. It's not like elementary schools like at Balboa and other places where school ends at a certain time and parents come and pick up. It's varied depending on the parents. Now I know there are some stay-at-home dads and moms that can go pick up their kids, and sometimes parents have to use other resources to pick up their kids that are drop-off. But in any event, it's usually at different times, not continuous throughout any particular period in the morning or afternoon. I know Louis and Lena very well. I've known them for at least 30 years. Louis, Lena for more than 10. They are a wonderful couple, great family. They have 2 wonderful children. I've been their lawyer and real estate broker, and still am, and have high regard for their ethics, their morality, their care and concern for children and for the community. And I know for a fact that they're not going to, up to this point and after, try to ramrod or be the take it or leave it type of people. They are positive for the community, and I think a preschool is absolutely wonderful for this particular part of Glendale. Somebody spoke earlier about the need for more preschools, and this is the kind of preschool that the community should encourage and support. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that parking shouldn't be a consideration and traffic shouldn't be a consideration. Of course they should. And, I presume that the city mechanisms have done their due diligence to make sure that happens. That's why we have those kinds of departments. And if they've agreed to all the conditions that the city has proposed, and those proposals are reasonable, then I think the decision is relatively straightforward at that point. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Okay, so with the last two speakers, Alicia and Akram, please submit a speaker's request form before you leave. And then I don't see anybody else, so I'd like to call forward Mr. Khan for rebuttal.
Certainly, Ms. Stotler. Once again, my name is Rodney Khan. I'd like to start off by adding one additional letter that we just received, and it was from the one gentleman that just spoke, the owner of the coffee commissary, who actually is also the president of the Kenneth Village Merchants Association in support of our request.
Thank you.
I'll try to, the best I can, address the items that I've heard. First of all, I'll reemphasize the point. The use of the building as a child care center is allowed by right, and that's not the discussion or what we're requesting here today. We're requesting here the location of the pickup and the drop-off and nothing else. The last speaker kind of took one of my points away. Excuse me. But I'll reemphasize it anyway. We've worked with the City of Glendale Traffic and Transportation section. We've worked with the City of Glendale Public Works Engineering section. We've worked with Community Development of the City of Glendale. We've worked with Building and Safety. We've worked with the Fire Department. We've worked with all the professional staff that is responsible at the City of Glendale to review projects of all size, all scale, and all magnitude. All of their considerations, all of their comments we've addressed and we've incorporated in our project. The speaker, or one of the speakers, suggested that we consider having a pickup and drop off across the street. To me, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. In terms of the safety of the children, in terms of not being the owner of the property, in terms of anything else, I couldn't think of an idea that makes less sense than doing that. It's pointed out the commissary restaurant has come in and they've impacted the area. We are not the commissary restaurant. So in terms of the commissary restaurant, whether it's positive or negative, we have no statement on, but we are not the restaurant. There was a comment made that that a speaker couldn't believe that children are picked up at 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon. Currently, at their existing daycare facility, 75% of the children are picked up between 2:30 and 3. So if that doesn't emphasize the point that we made earlier, I don't know what does. There was other comments related to other activities, whether it be a church that's located nearby or some of the other businesses. Many of these other businesses are very busy on the weekends when we are closed. So we wouldn't impact that in any way or manner. Last, I'll talk about the parking. The covenant, one speaker said, is vague and ambiguous. When we look at documents, we started off by looking at title reports. We looked at any other type of documentation as it relates to the property. There is nothing that states in any of the title reports any covenants, any encumbrances whatsoever. And I think your city staff has also researched this, as was called out very clearly in the staff report. In conclusion, we think this is an excellent location for this use. We ask that you take into consideration and approve our request. Thank you very much.
right, well, I'm now closing this public hearing. This case will be taken under submission, and I will be preparing a decision letter. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next item. Oh, thank you. All right. I'm going to ask everybody that we still have a live hearing going on. So I know you're making a lot of noise. If you want to have a conversation, I'm asking you to please go outside to have your conversations. Right. Excuse me? Please go outside to have your conversations. We have a live hearing going on. Okay. Thank you. Please, outside, please. Thank you. All right. The next item is at 2201 Honolulu Avenue. Thank you. This is an administrative use permit to allow the operation of a fast food restaurant and on-site sales, service, and consumption of alcohol. It's administrative use permit PAUP 1723291, administrative use permit PAUP 1723293, and parking reduction permit PPRP 1729295. So again, it's administrative use permits to allow operation of a fast food restaurant and on-site sales, service, and consumption of alcohol. Parking reduction permit to allow the reduction of 7 parking spaces to accommodate the change of use from a full-service restaurant to a fast food restaurant within an existing approximately 3,000 square foot building located in the CR commercial retail zone in the Montrose Shopping Park. The project is exempt from CEQA review as a Class 1 existing facilities exemption pursuant to State CEQA Guidelines Section 15301 because the work involves interior and exterior alterations, such as interior partitions, plumbing, and electrical work. So I'd like to ask the case planner to provide an overview.
Thank you, Ms. Stotler. Once again, I'm going to approach the board just to give a quick overview. Once again, this is 2 AUPs. One's for a fast food restaurant. The second one is for this on-site sales, service, and consumption of alcoholic beverages. And the other application is a parking reduction permit to reduce the required amount of spaces, 7 spaces, because they're proposing to change it from a full-service restaurant to a fast food restaurant. Just to give you general site context, the zone and general plan of this property is commercial regional, which is, this property is located in the Montrose Shopping Park. It's located at the northwest corner of Honolulu and Montrose Avenue. And the previous site, once again, it was the Rocky Cola site, which existed there for approximately 20 years. There is no parking on site of the property. There are public parking spaces, publicly owned parking lots, which are 1, 3, and 7 within 500 feet of the property. Which parking lot number 3 is right here, and then number 7 is over here, and the other one is just within this fringe right here. Just to go over general plan consistency, the commercial regional typically features goods and services with a widespread appeal, drawing power to the area. And once again, this is the Montrose Shopping Park, which is generally described as, and it's not really an outdoor mall area, but it has shops all around Honolulu, which has patrons park at the public parking spaces and walk along the pedestrian right-of-ways and just shop around the shopping park. A fast food restaurant within the Montrose Shopping Park and this zone would be complementary to the neighboring uses and the property. Honolulu and Montrose are identified as an urban collector. Honolulu is identified as an urban collector, and Montrose is a major arterial. Just to quickly go over the functions outlined by these streets in the general plan is urban collectors. They service as transit routes and are candidates for bike lanes and routes and accommodate light traffic, truck traffic. The purpose of a major arterial is to deliver heavier volumes of traffic between collector streets and business centers and outside the city boundaries and connected freeways. Because this is a request for fast food and alcohol beverage on site with consumption of meal, and I'll go into the bar area in the back, this project does not affect the open space, recreation, or housing or noise element to be impacted. And I'll go over those about the noise as well. The proposed use, once again, will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or general welfare of the environment. Because going over the previous use here, the use was Rocky Cola, which was there for 20 years, which was a full-service restaurant. The proposed use is considered a fast food restaurant is because the patrons to this site will walk in, go to a counter, and order from the counter there. But when they seat themselves, they'll be waited upon staff for to deliver the food and drinks, and also they'll be bussing at the table. So by definition of the code, it's considered a full-service restaurant. Previously in the past, the Rocky Cola, it had 2 CUPs to sell alcoholic beverages. In 2007, it had an approval to sell beer and wine. In 2012, Rocky Cola upgraded their ABC license to serve full liquor. Because of the operation of a restaurant and have alcoholic beverage on site here, staff doesn't believe for this proposed uses will not be detrimental to the development and or impede normal development of the neighboring properties. Once again, just to go into here, they will have a main dining area, and also will have a lounge area, which is called a bar, seating, and dining area in the back. The applicant is stating within their application this will be a fast food restaurant as opposed to being a bar. Staff is recommending a condition restricting the establishment if it derives more than 50% of gross revenues from alcoholic beverage sales, which is by definition a tavern. It requires a separate conditional use permit for this site. So they have identified themselves as a fast food restaurant. Neither Glendale Police Department or Neighborhood Services has cited any concerns to the nature of this request, and had recommended several conditions of approval, which is provided with the analysis of the staff report and findings and recommended conditions. The subject site was constructed in 1923. Utilities for water, electricity, sewer, and trash are already provided at the site. But as you can see here, the building occupies most of the site. There's no, without any opportunity to add any parking or landscaping. As a result, that's why they're asking for the parking reduction permit. Just to quickly go over the parking reduction permit, a parking study was provided with this application. The parking study was within a specific area within Montrose Shopping Park, which had a total of 584 parking spaces, which 451 of them were the city parking lots number 1, 3, and 7, which all once again are within 500 feet of the site, and 133 on-site street parking spaces. Just to go over in just conclusion of the parking study, during the weekday and weekend, adequate parking was determined. The busiest periods were on the Wednesday lunch hour, and also the Friday dining evening hour, which on Wednesday, of the public parking spaces and the on-street parking spaces, 87% of the parking spaces were occupied, where 81 parking spaces were available during that time. And then on Friday, 85% was occupied, where 88 was available. And on Saturday, which was the busiest day on the weekend, 66 spaces were available, which was 89% occupancy. You know, staff believes the findings for the administrative use permit and the parking reduction permit can be found in a positive manner, and recommends that the hearing officer review and take in consideration of the draft findings and the conditions. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you. I would like to ask the applicant, Janelle Williams, to come forward.
Good morning, Ms. Stotler. How are you today?
Fine, how are you?
Good, thank you. I would like to thank you, Dennis. Really appreciate all the hard work you've done on this. I noted noted in your analysis, was this a misnomer? You said by definition of the code, it is considered a full-service restaurant.
It's a fast food restaurant.
Okay.
Yes.
Fast.
Okay, and that's kind of a gray area. Looking at the interpretation of the code, they consider a buffet-style restaurant a full-serve restaurant. And although this is less self-serve than a buffet, it's still categorized as a fast food. So there's a big gray area there as far as I'm concerned anyway. But we've read the conditions of approval and agree with them. I'd like to also ask, are the elevations available?
Yes. I have the reduced size plans.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to point out also, this is so exciting for Montrose. The site has been vacant for so long, and as a business owner in Montrose, me and all of the other businesses and residents are just tired of that corner being so dead, because it's such an important corner. It's the gateway to Montrose. And the building was initially constructed in 1923. Since then, a lot of facade, some would not say they were improvements, but facade changes have taken place. With this application, when they go through the design review, we're proposing to remove all of that old Rocky Cola cladding that was on the front of the building and restore it back to the 1923 Art Deco style. It's going to be very exciting and beautiful. Also opening the windows, you can see on the plan there, the windows open to the sidewalk outside. So it's going to be very community-friendly place, and we're really excited about it. Both the property owner and the tenant are here, obviously in support. So we'll go, I guess, with the, do you want to talk about the AUP, or is that just administrative?
If you just want to talk about the AUP and how you're going to operate especially for the, it's not beer and wine, it's full alcohol.
It's full alcohol, yes. But the site has been granted multiple use permits over the years for alcoholic beverages, and this request is for alcoholic beverages as well, and for a full line of alcoholic beverages, which is the same conditional use permit that Rocky Cola had before this.
And what would be your hours of operation? I guess that's what I'm concerned if people come in and early, because I saw that sometimes you might be open till 2. I was just curious how you were.
Well, the thinking behind that was if there was some kind of soccer event or something that's taking place in Brazil, some big, large international event, that they would need to, broadcast it live, and it could.
Yeah, or even if somewhere in Montrose, if there's some theater or something.
Or a theater event or something else going on in Montrose, but not usual, and very, very, very rarely. And we can't even really think of a good example right now, but we just don't want to be locked in.
Okay.
We'd like to be limited to the hours that are by state statute with the alcoholic beverage control.
Okay.
So, but the days and hours of operation are generally 7 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Okay.
So on the administrative use permit, the proposed remodel will still meet the intent of the zoning ordinance and it won't be detrimental to the public health or safety, general welfare, or to the environment. It will be a family-friendly restaurant and not a bar, but it will be a casual, family-friendly and comfortable place to meet up with friends and enjoy a meal and a beverage, either alcoholic or non-alcoholic. The restaurant location has never really been identified as a concern by any of the neighbors. or by the police department. Montrose Shopping Park is already developed with commercial uses such as restaurants and retail establishments, and there has been a restaurant at that site for at least 55 years. We're upgrading all of the electrical, all of the plumbing, all of the infrastructure. We're providing ADA compliant restroom facilities, ramps, lifts, everything. This restaurant is undergoing a complete redo. So the site has been out of compliance with all of that for so many years. It's just going to be a really exciting new place that will enhance the options that we have within the Montrose Shopping Park. And this has been long desired by the Montrose Shopping Park Association, the Chamber of Commerce, and the residents and the other businesses there. So the structure is obviously existing. We can't do anything about the parking there, but there's ample parking within close proximity to the site, and that parking that is within close proximity was actually built for the Montrose Shopping Park users. So it's properly accommodated and located. Let's see. Crime statistics will show that the existence of a restaurant serving alcoholic beverages does not intend to intensify any crime in the area. Any crime in Montrose, most of the crime in Montrose has to do with retail theft. So the changes to the facade will be returned to the original Art Deco style. There will be adding a clock over the entryway, and it will be a classic nod to old-time Montrose. Since the remodeled restaurant will continue to be a casual neighborhood establishment serving residents as well as patrons and employees of local businesses, there will be no negative impact whatsoever. And as Dennis mentioned, parking in the municipal lots 3, 1, and 7 are available for the use, and there's also ample street parking. I think it was 133 street parking spaces as well. So we would anticipate maybe a 1-hour stay at the restaurant, and then hopefully to use other businesses as well.
Okay.
Which is what we tend to do in the Montrose Shopping Park. Do you have any questions at this point?
No, I think all the findings were made in the staff report, as long as you're agreeing with the findings that were that we've had for the AUPs as well as the PPRP.
Yes. Tom, you've read the findings? Do you have any questions as to the operation?
And I have no
I'm not
further
gonna ask-
questions. Oh,
okay.
unless he has. The only other, I just want to make a statement that in terms of shared parking, that's the goal of the North Glendale Community Plan when it comes to the Montrose Shopping Park. So this is 100% consistent with also the North Glendale Community Plan in addition to our general plan. So
Yes,
I just wanted
correct.
to
I failed to mention
add
that.
that.
Good point.
Yeah.
You're right.
And I have no further questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have speakers.
I would like to call forward Tom Christopoulos, followed by Nelson Mammy.
Hi, my name is Tom Christopoulos. I hold the lease on the property, and I'd be the operator of Gus and Andy's Montrose Grill. I grew up in La Cañada, known the area, went to high school, or grade school, high school, all in the area. My kids have grown up in the area, so we know the area, we know the intersection, we know when it was Rocky Cola, we know all the businesses up and down the street there. And I grew up in the restaurant business, so I know quite a few of the businesses down the street.
Okay.
So just to be a little bit clear on what we're trying to do what's called fresh casual versus fast food and versus full service. So we want to have the client be able to order at the counter, and then we'll seat them, we'll serve them at the tables, whether it's their food, their drinks, refill their drinks, whatever it may be. It's becoming a trend. It started more on the East Coast. I have some restaurants on the East Coast, and now we're bringing it here, and I've seen a lot of it down in Orange County and San Diego and up by San Francisco. So we just don't have a lot here in Glendale or La Cañada, Pasadena area yet. And also so we're not competing directly with everybody on the street. We're going to have maybe 20-25% of our food would be a to-go item. So someone would be just showing up, getting a breakfast burrito or getting a burger and fries and leaving. And then also we're going to be trying to go for the wood-burning grill. So similar to Santa Maria style food, the Central Coast type food, we'll be grilling on a wood-burning grill. And then the menu items will be everything
But
from...
the wood-burning grill is all within your business, correct?
Yes.
It's not outside in the back?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
It's on
Okay.
the plan. It's got the the hood for it.
You'd
and
be
the air
surprised.
scrubber. No,
Okay.
it's all part
Okay.
of it. But basically, whether it's beef, chicken, fish, anything, it'll be on that grill. But we'll also have things like pastrami sandwiches and probably salads and things like that.
Okay.
I operate a restaurant up in Newhall right now, so we'll probably modify that menu and bring it to this location.
Which one?
Jimmy Dean's Burgers.
Okay.
On Lions. Anyways,
I went to Hart High. I know exactly where that's at.
okay, so I've owned it for the last 18. I've owned that one for the last 20
My
years.
kids still went there. Okay.
All right, so, and Janelle mentioned we have to revamp the whole space. Nothing about that building is up to date or meets code or anything. So we're revamping the whole thing. We talked to Historic Preservation, working with them on bringing back the facade that we found behind the Rocky Cola cladding, and the whole thing. I think we're just going to bring a positive upgrade to the vacant site, and it's all family and community oriented. So I think that's about it.
Did you have any concerns with the conditions of approval?
No, none of the conditions bothered us. Our typical hours probably would be 7 a.m. to 10 or 11 p.m., depending on the day of the week and how busy the streets are. Like I said, I grew up there, so I know Sunday night, 8 o'clock, there's nothing going on. But then we'd like to have the ability to stay open a little bit later when there's some kind of special event, whether Santa Valley High School has something going on or somebody else local has something going on that we stay open late for. But I think that's it. Do you have any questions for me?
Nope, that's it.
All right, thank you.
Nelson Mamie, followed by Steve Pierce.
Hi, my name is Nelson Mamie. I am one of the owners of the location in question. As you know, Rocky Cola was there for over 25 years. It became a landmark for Montrose as the entrance there. We are very excited about having Guy and Andy's bring in their concept as a family-style restaurant that's much needed in the area, and just wanted to say that we're fully in support of what they plan to do there.
Okay, thank you. And then Steve Pierce.
Good morning. My name is Steve Pierce. I'm the Communications Administrator for the Montrose Shopping Park Association. And I would like to say that this location has been empty for well over 6 years. We are so excited about Gus and Andy's Montrose Grill coming into town. We're looking forward to it. I represent, or the Montrose Shopping Park Association represents 187 merchants within the shopping park. We are a business improvement district within the city of Glendale. And we do a lot of events in Montrose to bring people to Montrose so that they can shop and enjoy our restaurants and our unique shops that we have. This edition will be one more opportunity for us to bring people to Montrose, and so we are looking forward to that from that perspective. I do have a letter from the Shopping Park Association president and the board members to present to you. We're in support of the parking reduction permit requested by Gus and Andy's Montrose Grill, and we are looking forward to our relationship with them. So if I may present this to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. And do we have any other speakers?
Well, I just have a personal note to make. I have lived in the Montrose area, Glendale area, and La Crescent area for the past 52 years. And my wife grew up in this area. We always enjoyed the Rocky Cola site. That was one of our really unique locations. But since it's been empty, that is one of the places that as you come into the east side of Montrose, that's the first thing you see. We put up some old-time pictures in the windows at the old Rocky Cola site to dress it up a little bit. But this is going to be a real plus for us. And so welcome, Tom, and we are looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Victoria DeSala?
Good morning, officers. Stoller. I'm Victoria DeSala Malone. I am a longtime resident. I grew up in the area. I've been a past business owner in the area. My children have been raised in the area, and I am the new executive director of the Montrose Chamber of Commerce. We are in support of this restaurant. We know that the community is more than eager to see this location be occupied, and this business seems to fit right in and actually update what has been previously there before. It will be a nice family style, it seems, for parents and children who need a place to go to spend their time, quality family time together. We are glad as the chamber to see this location be occupied once again, and we've had numerous residents walk into our office and inquire, and now that they know it may be moving forward, they're very enthusiastic. So we are glad to see that the location is finally being occupied, and it seems that everything they are proposing is in order for what we've had in the past. It doesn't seem to have any negative effect on the community, and we know that people are excited about it.
Okay.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? I'd like to ask Ms. Williams if she has any further comments. I don't know that there's anything to rebut.
I don't know that there's anything to rebut, but I just want to thank you for, it's a lot of work, 3 applications. Dennis did a yeoman's job. We had many, many telephone conversations back and forth, questions and answers, and he did a lot of work on it. We just really appreciate it, and we're excited to see this project go forward. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've looked through the reports. We've heard the testimony. All the findings can be made. I think all of the conditions of approval have been well outlined in the staff report. And so I am going to approve all these cases. Administrative use permit case number PAUP 1723291, administrative use permit case number PAUP 1723293, and parking reduction permit case number PPRP 1723295, with the conditions as they are outlined in the staff report. And therefore that these items are approved. And now, I suppose I should have closed the hearing before I approved them, but I consider it closed. There are no further items on the agenda, and so this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for coming.